Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneur. Bob Baker here. And let me tell you, if you like hanging out with kind of energetic, inspiring people, you are going to love this interview with Michael Gebben. This guy's done some amazing things. He's not even out of his 20s yet, and already he's been able to collaborate with Tim Ferriss of the 4-Hour Workweek, with Tony Robbins, even Sir Richard Branson. And you can find out in the interview exactly how he does that. But he's a very inspiring, upbeat guy with a very positive message, and he's built a little business around it. Has been self-employed for years, and his attitude and enthusiasm are just contagious. I know you're going to love this. So, how would you like to become a VIP? That's right, a very important person. Well, you already are a very important person, but I'm specifically talking about the Creative Entrepreneur VIP list. That's right, it gets you past the velvet rope, it gets you the best tables and all the finest restaurants. Well, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but when you get on the list, you actually get an email from me every time I post a new interview, and you get a big free sample of my new book called The DIY Career Manifesto. That's pretty close to getting best table, isn't it? Sure. To get on this VIP list, all you need to do is go to DIYcareermanifesto.com and sign up for it. That's also the website where all of these interviews, all of them, are housed. So why not go there right now while you're thinking of it and sign up for the list if, of course, you're not already on it. All right, let's move on to this week's interview. Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneur. Bob Baker here, and man, I tell you, if you're feeling like you want to get energized, I know that my guest today is going to serve that purpose and more. I'm talking about, my guest is Michael Gebben. Hey, Michael, how are you, man?
I'm excited to be here, Bob. Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, you're the kind of guy that seems to be excited about a lot of things. That's kind of like your brand, which we'll get into a little bit here. But I just discovered that we are actually not very far from each other geographically. A lot of people know that I'm born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where my home office is here. But you're just over the river in Alton, Illinois, right?
Yep, all of Illinois. I've been born and raised here my whole life. Don't plan on going anywhere.
Yeah, you're not even a half an hour away, and I've been there many times. And yeah, there's a beautiful, what is it called, the Great River Road or something?
Great River Road. Yep, absolutely. Goes up to Grafton, which you mentioned you've gone to in the past. So
yeah. So I'm very familiar. And back in my band days, yeah, I played at I never played at Fast Eddie's, which I know is a real popular place up in that area. But I played at different clubs in Illinois in that area, so I'm well versed on your neck of the woods. So cool. But we've never met in person. I know we've been friends on Facebook, and so I know that you're very active with posting videos. You have a new podcast that we'll talk about. But let's start, and then also my typical list of questions here. But I want to know a little bit about your background, because I think it has your area of creativity, as I understand it, has something to do with video production and that service. And so maybe tell me a little bit about who you are and some of the amazing people that you've worked with, and then how that's led to what you're kind of doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's funny is probably in most of my social networks on Facebook and Twitter and all those different things, most people right now, if you've connected with me, see more of my kind of inspirational brand or positive energy that I put out there, all that kind of stuff that's going on right now.
Right.
But really, I started my video production company when I was 19, right out of high school. I didn't go to college, and as I said, I'll be 28 this year. It's been quite a ride. I actually never even flew on a plane until I was 22, and I've flown on a plane so much this year that I've already reached companion pass status with Southwest Airlines, which is pretty crazy.
Wow, that's amazing.
But so I've literally my path with the video, I mean, it started with just shooting $500 weddings, graduations, dance recitals. I joked that, you know where East St. Louis is.
Oh, sure.
So there's not the best area on the planet. And there's I went to a Pentecostal church service where they were speaking in tongues, and there was barbed wire around the fences. And I used to transfer old 8mm to DVD and VHS to DVD. I mean, we did it all. And then I really, expanded when I started doing this thing called a same-day edit for weddings. And that was essentially a highlight video that I would show that night at the reception. And that it took off like wildfire. It allowed me to expand into what I call the non-wedding world, or commercial work, where I've had the honor, the privilege to work with people such as Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins. I've gone to Necker Island a few times, which is Richard Branson's island. I've worked with Lewis Howes and Derek Halpern and Pat Flynn, who was a previous guest. Just some incredible, incredible people. So it's been quite a ride.
But how'd you make the leap from like weddings, to working with these big name people? Because when I went to your website, I saw it's Tony Robbins, Tim. Yeah, you said Tim Ferriss from 4 Hour Work Week.
Which you'll tell Aaron when you ask me some of your questions. So
all right, yeah, I don't want to get into if you're going to answer those later, I won't get into that. So you rather wait, yeah.
Well, no, I'll tell you a little bit more, and then we'll probably get into your questions. But I mean, really, what transitioned me more into like kind of commercial work was actually the wedding same day edit, because what happened is there would be business owners and whatnot at the wedding, and they would go, wow, if he can do that with a wedding like that day, what could he do with my business? And so I started to do some more kind of commercial work. And then, yes, I will tie in how Tim Ferriss was the catalyst for starting this big other trend in online marketing that I've gotten into and some of that other stuff. Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, the weddings, I mean, I've gone all over the United States. I've gone to Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and really all of that was the same day edit and the word of mouth that it produced, because really most people think a wedding video is something they'll never want to look at or watch ever again, nor sometimes even get in general, because they know how bad it will most likely be. So when I would show this video, people just went crazy. You'd have a couple hundred people that ultimately, it's funny, hindsight's always 20/20, right? I was getting paid to kind of market, because really, I mean, I'd have, like I said, 200 people there, and they would just go, wow. And then I'd have people coming up going, I wish I could get married again. Are you available next week? And so it was crazy, but it was a fun ride.
That's awesome. And this may also be another part of your answers later, but I assume you got into what you're doing currently, maybe like observing Tony Robbins and all these motivational speakers and all that. Did you start to think to yourself, wow, you know what? I could do that too. I've got a message. I've got a personality.
Well, it's funny because, I've always loved helping people. And through everything that I've done in video production, I mean, it was somebody who I had a mentor kind of come into my life that I ultimately was actually paying per hour for some coaching, and he was in video production. And the first year that I broke 6 figures was the year that I got, I started kind of getting that coaching or training from him. And I didn't know about Tony, which we'll get to till after the whole Tim Ferriss story. So I'll kind of get into that. But my mindset, when I changed that, is when my business changed. Because for so long, I focused on all the gear and the technology. And one of my biggest regrets, which I really don't have many at all, because I'm where I'm at today because of everything I've done. But the biggest thing was that there's times I wish I could go back or I could do it a little bit differently. And it's how much money I spent on just all the gear and all the techie type of stuff that really I can look at today, and I can go down to this core set of gear that really, we teach people today for $5,000 or less, almost sometimes even $3,000 or less. They have everything they need to really crush it. And I've spent
way more
a lot more than that. So, but live and learn. So
cool. This sounds like this is a good time to just go ahead and jump into those questions and start digging out some of those things from your past. So the first thing I always like to ask my guests is looking at, you've been an incredible journey at this young, you're still not even out of your 20s yet. But if you could identify 3 key factors that were sort of responsible for your growth and getting to where you are now, what would those be, Michael?
Well, one, I probably don't bring up enough, but I know at the core, and this is something when you say that I have to give an enormous amount of credit to my parents. Honestly, they're not actually entrepreneurs at all. They're not super wealthy or anything like that. But the biggest core thing is how they brought me up. I always, treat everybody with respect, treat everybody equally. You never know who you're dealing with, but also truly more than anything, their support. They have supported me every step of the way. When I told them I didn't want to go to college and could I just try this whole thing out, and then if it didn't work out that I could go back to college, they supported me. And they've done everything from, co-sign on loans. I mean, they did do all these little things. They didn't have the money, but I had to go get the business plan, and I went to the bank and they would co-sign. These just little things that we take for granted sometimes. But I mean, I owe a lot to where my journey started from them and their support the whole way, no matter what. Even if I come up with the craziest idea on the planet, sometimes some would say to a fault they're supportive. But I mean, ultimately, I truly believe that I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my upbringing and them and all their support. So that's number one.
Cool.
The other one, it is truly surrounding myself with incredible people. Mm-hmm. Truly surrounding myself with the most incredible people and removing all the negative out of my life. So that could be two different things, but ultimately I consider that one. Like for me, taking out anybody who just isn't supportive. I mean, honestly, I know some people, unfortunately, it might be their parents don't support them. Well, once you're 18, I've never had it to that extreme of a level, but you do have hopefully somewhat of the choice to get out of that situation and go off on your own and do your own thing. I mean, you have that control once you're 18 and older to remove those negative people out of your life. And for me, I didn't have a lot of necessarily super like naysayers, but I did have people that what you kind of considered toxic. They're not ever positive. They don't ever believe anything. They just kind of go, yeah, sure, whatever. Or, even the news and media and all those types of things. Tim talks about that kind of in his book with, the low information diet. You don't need to have to turn on the 9 o'clock news every night and watch it. You don't have to go to the front page of Yahoo and read all these things happening that a lot of times are negative. So I removed a lot of that and just surrounded myself with just amazing people. And that took time. But I can say that the one thing that I know, which might tie in here later, like coming into this year, a good buddy of mine who has this event called Mastermind Talks, Jason Gennard, who has just incredible people that show up to this. I'll be filming it again in this June. He said, your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. And I truly, truly believe that. I've done some crazy things, taken some crazy risks. And at the end of the day, it's been the core group of people that I've surrounded myself with. And they're not all local. They're all over the world. But those people and their support and their knowledge and their expertise has really helped catapult me to where I am today. And a third one, really what I harp on probably at the core almost more than anything on my podcast, my weekly YouTube series, all this stuff is this belief in yourself that things are possible. My channel title says anything is possible. And so after going to Tony Robbins events, which didn't start till almost, I think, 2012, I started to identify when he was talking about things that I think I already did to an extent without being fully conscious of it or aware or understanding of it. And, my biggest change between me at 19 and me today, which probably happened just a couple years in, was when I started, I was 19. I didn't go to college. I was really young. I didn't know what I was doing, but I said all those things. I said, people aren't going to take me seriously. I don't really know that I could get more than $1,000 to shoot a wedding or, all these things. And the biggest difference between me at 19 and me today is not what I look like. I don't look a ton older or anything like that, but it's truly my mindset, my belief system, and my confidence in what I do. And I believe that makes all the difference. And, I'll tie in one final little story there. I recently just did an interview with Michael Port. And I was telling him, because I truly believe that it will be people's personalities that will trump their talent here in the future economy, whatever you want to call it. And so what I mean by that is you have to still reach a certain level with your talent, but at the same time, it's getting the playing field's getting very even when it comes to the quality of work that can be produced. But it's you as a person that will stand above and beyond the other people that someone might deal with. And I told that to Michael, and he said, it's funny. I talked to two other people besides you who were highly referred to me from, reputable friends of mine. And their work was either equal or better than yours. But I chose you because you connected with my vision and me more than those other two people did. And so do you think that ever in this world people think they have to be the best? And not that you shouldn't strive to do great work, right? But at the end of the day, he basically said, you didn't necessarily have the best work, but you connected with me more. And I feel like in what's moving forward, you have to believe in yourself, and then others can believe in you. But then it's that connection with people. So, no, a random side note.
Awesome. Yeah, I've often said, could you hear that thing? It's a level playing field with digital technology and the affordability of everything. And I've kind of clarified that by saying everyone has access to the playing field, but how you play the game is different for every individual. And it's the rare combination of of talent, personality, your ability to embrace all the new tools and all that, instead of cursing them. And that's why I think no matter what era we live in or what the business model is, I think people will always, there'll always be a small percentage of people that really make it on a significant level, because there's a new gatekeeper, I guess, and that's embracing the workload and all that good stuff. But absolutely. That's awesome. So your parents, and actually of all the 27 or 28 interviews I've done, it's maybe come up a few times where people have mentioned their parents. So that's obviously an important thing. But it kind of ties into your thing about the question I have real quickly, a follow up. That ties into surrounding yourself with positive people. What if you don't have supportive parents, or what if they're just sort of lukewarm, or they're saying get a day job so you have something to fall back on? Is the next best step then to look outside of your family then for that positive reinforcement?
I do believe that. I mean, like I said, I try never to fully speak on things that I'm probably not an expert in because I didn't experience it,
right.
But in talking to, because I've had a lot of those come up though sometimes with people older than me who go, well, yeah, but once you have kids, or yeah, but once this, or once that, I've seeked out a lot of different people in a lot of different scenarios, and I have seen all walks of life, from people who don't have the supportive parents to people like myself who do, and you have to find the way, and you have to get outside of that environment the best you can. Of course, like I said, when you're younger, it might be very difficult to just uproot and leave your house. I don't really necessarily suggest that unless it's abusive or something. But ultimately, what's funny is it doesn't matter who it is in your life. There might still always be those people who do support you, but might still question what it is that's going on.
Right.
And so most won't actually believe until they see it. And so you just have to, at the core in yourself, realize, what? I might not have the 100% support from anybody, but there's somebody like who I'm closely related to. But I hope through things like what you have, or my podcast, or my YouTube, that people know that there's someone else out there and they're not alone. So they may not have connected with that person yet, but there's not a person out there on this planet who hasn't had somebody on the planet who's in an equal scenario to them. There's no one.
Right.
I mean, there's no one. I think it's Nick Vujicic is how you say it. No arms, no legs.
Right.
There's still actually other people like him, and he's got a rare disease. So there might not be that many, but there's others. And so I find it's funny how many people pop out of the woodwork once you succeed, or at least in their eyes, or once you prove that what you thought was crazy. I mean, think of a light bulb, think of everything that we have on this planet. And one time it didn't exist. Someone thought they were crazy. They made it happen, and now they're, revered. So
and that comes back to that possibility thinking that you mentioned in factor number 3. Great advice, Michael. All right, continuing on with the list of questions here, Michael. Let's talk about challenges, which I think we kind of briefly touched on. But what can you cite a specific business or creative challenge that you faced, the way you overcame it? Maybe what you learned from it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the challenges that I mentioned was, that fact of I spent a ton of money on gear and technology. Now, this probably wasn't be the big bulk of my answer to this, but, something I'm not necessarily would suggest to anybody. But one thing that I know is I've been resilient, and the fact of never giving up, always pushing forward, and always finding a way. And sometimes when we do training, I find people who don't want to buy a $12 URL to start their business or to start their website or do something like that, to whom I say, you probably shouldn't be in business for yourself and you should just get your own job, right? And so for me, I mean, one of the things that I did do is, I got the credit cards, I got the things, I did whatever I could to make it happen, and I kept pressing forward. So even though I was spending the money on some of the things, you can have $5,000 on a credit card and it won't cost you more than a couple $100 a month. Now, granted, I realize all the interest, all that stuff, but could I generate a couple $100 a month? And I was able to do that, so I was able to keep moving forward. But in regards to big challenges, I mean, that was something that, I dealt with. And I think a lot of people, when they start a business, they go, well, it costs money to make money. And albeit that can be true, that's why one of the things that kind of tie in there, I would suggest to other people is be smart. There are a lot of ways now. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So although that was something I dealt with, and then how I kind of dealt with it, I did it on the cards. I did whatever that I had to do, and it didn't cost me. I was never stupid about it, right? I never just went so far beyond where it was like, it cost me $9,000 a month, and I'm only making $2,000.
Right.
I always kind of scaled, but ultimately for me, it was, I think it was that idea of the overwhelm was probably some of my biggest things outside of the little financial thing I just talked about. And overwhelm, what I mean is, I guess I created a good problem for myself, and I always seem to do it over and over again, which is I try to always do a great, great job for people in whatever level I'm capable of at. And I tell people this, and like, you can apply to authorship, it can apply to anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Do the best that you're capable of right now until the supply is so much that you can't handle it. Then you can charge a premium. But sometimes you see guys, like especially in the video space, they'll be like, well, I only got $200 for that. So they do a $200 job when they may know right now how to actually create a much better video. They'll create a poor video because that's all they got paid, but then that's all they end up keep getting. But so for me, I've always tried to do my best no matter what it is that I'm doing. Well, that created a lot of work for myself. And what happened was, which I've never proud of, I was doing upwards of almost 40 weddings a year. And I was getting bogged down because at one time I tried to do it all. And so thus I was 7-8 months behind on delivering these weddings. I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't want to interact with anybody because, every month past a couple months, which was in the contract, which is not still what I've ever seen as good, but that's kind of seems to be a standard in the industry. So I'd put that in my contract when I knew no better. You'll get it in a couple months. Well, of course, let's call it 3 months. Every month past 3 months is not good. Right. So it just, it kept piling up and piling up and piling up. And I was so stressed out. And so what I did to overcome all of that, and have since all the time since then, is finding people who are smarter than you to help you out with the things you're not good at. And so delegating, which, dealing with Richard Branson, I mean, he is the king of that. And he kind of tell you, he might not be the smartest cookie, out there. But the thing that he is smart at is he's very resilient and he's very focused in the sense that he's not afraid to try things and he's not afraid to put people in place and quite frankly, have the thing fail miserably. And so for me, when I had that first wedding video that was edited by someone else and the client was still really happy, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I don't have to do all this. And what I found is there's those things that people, like, they have to do in business, or people tell them you have to do this. This is just part of it. I think that people should learn how to do just about everything, like learn how to do it, at least have an understanding so they can speak intelligently when they do delegate it off. Because otherwise people pull things in front of you and you don't know you're getting screwed over. But at least if you have an understanding, you can talk intelligently and understand it. So that's what I've done, is I found that the things that I'm not good at, that I don't want to do, I'm not naturally gifted to that, and I have no desire to do, I need to at least understand it. But I need to find somebody as quick as possible to do that, or else I'll just be spinning my wheels and wasting a lot of time, and then I can focus on the things that I'm really great at or come more naturally. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you're not good at that, you won't get better at either. And there's been things just like my YouTube. Like, I did a YouTube thing long before I ever started it. It was really awkward, and I was kind of weird and looking around, and I didn't have any energy. But I kept at it, and it was something I wanted to get better at. And so in that case, I did.
Right.
So.
I'm glad that you said that, because that's another thing I've often said, was that I think a lot of people use the excuse, so they hear this advice about delegation, and they just because something is outside of their comfort zone, they automatically try to push it off on somebody, like the marketing. I can't market myself. I just want to create. Whereas if it's just outside of your comfort zone, but something that you could get better at, I think you need to kind of pick and choose those things. And I also agree you need to be an educated entrepreneur. So when you do delegate, you know what that person's going to encounter, so you're more realistic about what to expect from someone that you're paying.
And you should definitely do things outside your comfort zone. I mean, all the time. I mean, we'll tie things in, but I feel that's a big part of my success, because I've had a very naiveness at times and just do things, but at other times it's just that ability to try something and not worry or feel like I'm going to fail or make the mistake. To me, the only time you're failing or making mistakes is if you're not trying at all.
Right.
But otherwise, you're just learning. So
cool. So let's go to another 3-part question that's kind of fun for me. I don't know if you saw the recent Star Trek movie where there was old Spock met new Spock. They came face to face. So this is kind of like, think of those terms, that you're having a conversation with your younger self, and even your current self is pretty young. But let's say you could go back and talk to yourself when you're in high school and give 3 pieces of advice. One of them would be, young Michael, young Gebbs, if you will. Yes. Could you like to go by Gebbs too?
That's what a lot of people call me. That's what's so funny. I never really came up with that. Other people did, but that's what everybody calls me.
And it's even part of your website, gebbstv.com. But you would say to young Michael, these are the things that really worked. So do this thing exactly the same. 2, and maybe you kind of mentioned one earlier, but here's something that was a time waster. Avoid this, and then 3 would be, here's something that I didn't realize until later in life that was really good. I wish I would have done it earlier. Again, we may have touched on some of these, but let's go ahead and hit them one at a time. So what would you tell young Michael to do exactly the same, look in hindsight?
Well, what's funny, like I said, in regards to not being too many regrets, I wouldn't change a lot, because I'm who I am today. I'm where I'm at today from everything. So I recognize that. But the money thing is huge. That's probably it is my biggest thing that I would have told my young self to be smarter about. Because truly, I mean, what's so funny, and I'm not hurting, but at the same time, like, I would have today, probably darn near $1 million in the bank if I was smarter, with how much I've made since I've been in business. But because I just was like, so boom, 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 let's try everything and buy all these things, I had to dig myself out of some holes from that. So that's something that, I dealt with, but I definitely, looking back, would have done differently. I wish I would have known, which I could just tell that self to say, hey, here's all you need, and you can crush it. So, and then find a mentor. Much earlier on. I really am very hardcore about coaching, training, mentorship now, and not trying to figure out everything on your own. I think there's always going to be I'll make mistakes regardless of somebody helping me or guiding me. But there are things with people who have been there, done that, that is very important. And I will identify for people something recently, I'm saying this right, but ultimately that the mentor is the person in that field that has been there, done that. Then there's the coach. And the coach hasn't necessarily done anything in your field, but they really help you. I have one right now, and she is absolutely outstanding. She's actually a Tony Robbins coaching service, or part of that's in Europe. And she's just awesome. I'm speaking at her event in Berlin here coming up in May. But she's really, unlike a lot of people where I had at the beginning of the year, which was a little different, I had some most incredible people who were kind of wanting to mentor me. But what I find is everybody has an opinion. And sometimes we actually know what we need to do, but we continue to learn, and we take no action. So what was funny is I had like 3 different people who were incredible human beings and incredible in their crafts, but they've all succeeded in different ways.
Right.
And each one of those ways I could succeed with, but I can't succeed with all of them necessarily all at the same time, or going a little bit in this direction, a little bit in that. And so what she did, a coach did, was help me identify, look, you know what you need to do. You know, you have it all inside of you. From what you said, like you have all the information that you need. So you cut all that crap and then just focus, stay clear. And I did that, and man, it made a world of difference. So if having that person early on, instead of just fully acting like, I can do it all, I got it all under control, I'll figure it out, you know, because everybody wants to save money, right?
Right.
Nobody has any money, nobody this, and it's like, oh, well, that'll cost $500. I'm not doing that. I can do it myself. Time is money, in my opinion, and so if I value my time at whatever it is to anybody, like you have to look at that. If it's going to take me 80 hours to do what this might cost $500 and now it only takes me 2 hours, you know, I just saved a lot of money. I might not have brought it in, but now my time can be spent somewhere else more productive. So
right. I'm glad you mentioned that about your conversation with that coach, because I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. And he was an early, you know, one of the early personal development people that I listened to, you know, 20 years ago. But one issue I have when he talks a lot about modeling, where he says, yeah, find somebody who's done it, finding the exact, you know, steps and mental syntax and all this NLP stuff, you know, and then follow those steps. And I'm like, that never resonated with me, because I realized that the steps that someone else took is not necessarily the steps that's going to work for me. And so I always like, you know, be inspired by someone, but you don't necessarily have to model them step by step, but find your own way. Because I've interviewed, you know, I mean, not only through this interview show, but my old music newspaper, I've interviewed so many people, and the common, you know, the thing that I've come away with all these is everyone finds their own path. There's no one route, you know.
Yeah,
so
I'll talk on that for just 1 second, because I got to agree with you there. I found that you have to be very careful with the modeling aspect to a T, because where that person lives, who they meet, like there's all those little variables and things that are never public either, that they might never even talk about. So when you follow to a T, you run into these certain things, and then it's like you have a disaster because that person did the things in the background that you don't know about. So there are things that, you know, you should definitely model. I think that are public things, but there's definitely, don't take it as literal, because that's where I've had my faults in the past, is where I've tried to take so literal to a T someone, and it didn't resonate with me, and it was against my gut, and then I crashed and burned. So
I'm glad we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
All right, we're in the stretch, Michael. Next question is one I always find to be very revealing, and so I'm always surprised by the answers. But if you could name a book, a single book, I guess if you can mention another one if you want, but a book that really like changed your life, it was really impactful, what would that be?
Yeah, so I'll first tie in right before I started my company, which I was always kind of what a lot of people who are really close to me know, and some people who aren't as close think the opposite, is a lot of people who kind of got to know me with my video production thought that was my gift, that was my talent, that was my passion. Like I wanted to be this massive filmmaker and, you know, make it into the movie theaters and all this kind of stuff. And although I made films with my dad actually in high school, we had some fun stuff with that, and we still dabble in that, and it's enjoyable. What's funny is I was more the entrepreneur before I started my video production. I had a candy machine business in high school. Oh, wow. I see a lot of these guys, which I actually had. My first job was at 10 years old. I had a paper out. I wanted to have like a car detailing business. I was going to be I was going to go to school for kinesiology to be like a personal trainer. Wow. So I always had this thing. But what's funny is I finally got focused after having a million shiny object syndromes, and I got into my video production. But in 2010, when I was talking about kind of the overwhelm that I was having in my business, and I was trying to figure things out. I mean, it was like, I'm either just going to do weddings and cut everything else out, or I'm going to still do some weddings, but I'm going to figure out that there's something more. What is that? And I actually started reading a blog called Zen Habits. Mm-hmm. And there was a guest post on there by Tim Ferriss. I started reading his blog. I read his book in about September, October of 2010. And he talks about reaching the unreachable. And essentially, a couple months later in December, he announced on his blog that he was going to have a launch party for the 4-Hour Body in New York City. I immediately bought a ticket, had no idea actually if I was going to go, but the ticket was only $10. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to reach out. And a motto I live by, which I think could help a lot of people out, is the worst thing that's going to happen is you get a no, but you get a no when you don't ask. But at least when you ask, you have the opportunity for something good to happen. And
Yeah,
so
smart.
that's how I live my life. That's how I've had a lot of these things happen. Because I can hear in other people, they're like, well, that'll never happen. So they'll never even try. Well,
Right.
it'll never happen. So I tried. I sent an email, and lo and behold, about an hour after I sent the email, which was just like, your book's changed my life. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to be out at the launch party. Here's some things I've done. I'd love to produce something like this for you. Do it for free if you don't have anything. And an hour later, his assistant Charlie emailed me back and said, man, it looks great. Tim would love to have you, come on out and we'll connect and everything.
Wow.
So I filmed his launch party for the 4 Hour Body in New York City. And I can truly say that email, that event, that book. I actually saw Tim again recently at this mastermind talks. He was the main guy at that event last May, and I said, Tim, you effed up my life. Your book. I was joking, and it was just kind of funny. And he had heard about some of the things I had going on, but that was a pinnacle book moment, everything in my life. And then I filmed his event. It was a $10,000 event he had called the Kimono event a few years ago, and I met a guy who held that event, this Jason Gennard, at that event. And at that time, that was the only person that I met at that event. I still wasn't like super networker or all this stuff. And I just connected with one individual. And he, in a lot of ways, has changed my life and connected me with a ton of incredible people. And lo and behold, you fast forward, I actually was following Jason on Facebook, and he went to a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny event. And he said him and his wife went, it was $14,000. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do that, right? I was still in kind of a lack mindset at that time.
Right.
And so I was like, holy cow, that's never going to happen. That's really expensive, or whatever. Well, then I actually saw him announce on Facebook, an email came through or something. I hadn't known a lot about him prior to this. Somebody gave me a book, Awake at the Giant Within, and I read that. But then I saw the UPW. And the UPW is his Unleash the Power Within.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in December of 2011. And essentially, I saw it $500. And I had shock and awe. It was like $14,500. I could do that. Well, I thought, you know what? Let me try that thing I did with Tim. And so I thought, I'll try to send an email. And little did I know that I've been told now that the only people who have been at their events outside their their main video crew to do anything at a Tony Robbins event, and since he started, has been Oprah's crew. And then we've now gotten to go in there and film and everything. But what happened is I sent an email. And I tried to find Tony's personal email. That didn't go so well. I searched. I knew that I couldn't contact them on their contact form. I knew that would just go to spam, or it was solicitation, so it wouldn't really get through. So I found someone's email somewhere online, and I sent an email. They replied back about a week later, said, we'll forward this on to marketing. If marketing likes it, they'll get back to you. Lo and behold, a week later, they got back to me, said, we'd love to get in touch. We like what we see here. And from that moment, that was in January of 2012, about 3 or 4 months later, I arrived at the Four Seasons. And while we filmed other stuff, then I was at the Four Seasons. Tony comes out of the elevator. We get into this black FBI-looking SUV. We get on a helicopter. We fly over to New York City. We arrive at the Meadowlands, and then we go in, and I fly behind him on my glide cam in this shot, which we can link up the video. It's on his website, too. But I flew behind him, 6,000 people. I was in tears because it was so the energy in the room was insane. And the biggest group of people I had ever been in front of up until that point, my entire life, was at a wedding with maybe a couple hundred people. And there was 6,000 people. Just the music was pumping, the energy, and Tony comes out and he's got his hands going, and I'm right behind him in that moment. And it was absolutely incredible. And from that moment forward, it's been awesome. So we could probably have a 3-hour interview here. There's a lot of other stuff, but that kind of takes that in. So
yeah, I was curious. Even though you're going to these events as a videographer or whatever, do you get a chance to have personal chats with Tony and Tim Ferriss and Richard Branson, little bits here and there, maybe?
Richard, yes. Tim, I've only had a few interactions actually with him. Mm-hmm. Tony, not at his events, but I have had the honor, privilege, whatever you want to call it, to actually be filming interviews for his for a book that he's going to be releasing this year. And I've had as much as an hour of time sitting in a room getting to talk to him a little bit while we're waiting for one of the interviewees to come into the room, which has been just unbelievable. And I will say what's really interesting is some of the events that I've done, little things. Him and his wife, the first time I ever met Sage, and it's so crazy. I still don't know the full thing yet, but she said, "You're here for more than just filming." She said, "I don't know what it is, but she said, you're more here for more than just filming." And it's so crazy because there's been a few events where they've kind of called me in, or a few little things that they've called me in, and they'll both reference, "We knew you'd enjoy this." Like they call me in, not just back to the Michael Port thing I mentioned earlier, not because I'm the best videographer on the planet, or the best guy to do the job for them, but because I connect with them. I connect with that job. I don't just sit there and like hit record. Okay, thanks guys. Where's my check? It's like I wouldn't care if I was getting paid or anything. Like it's just the whole thing I connect with, and I really just feed off of. So
that's awesome. It sounds like that Sage or his wife might be a little bit intuitive, picking up some kind of energy vibe off of you or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So
those are fantastic stories, Michael. Wow. What a rich life you had lived at this young stage, and there's a lot more of it coming. So here's sort of a deep philosophical question. I love asking this one too. Like, what's your big why? Especially when it comes to you mentioned you launched a podcast recently. I think after doing some YouTube videos for a while, and apparently it hit like new and noteworthy on the main page of iTunes. Congratulations! Your fans are obviously following you and listening and downloading and all that good stuff. So basically, when it comes to this sort of new era of you being the person who's inspiring and all that,
right.
Yeah, what motivates you to do? Why you want to put all this stuff out?
I'm probably something like revealing here that I don't think I've mentioned too much, but as I always am progressing, I'm always changing, and things are always shifting. Like at the core, I bring back my parents, which started this all out. And at the core, every opportunity I've had, everything that I've had happen, I still don't believe I would have had happen had not grown up in the household that I grew up in, and that they didn't believe in me and support me. And, I always have wanted to just take care of them and give back to them at the core to help them. But I think that for me, it translates out to what we said in the call earlier. What about those people that don't have those parents? What about those people that don't have those friends or those people that support them? I hope that for me, for what's now been actually anybody and everybody, it seems like I got people of all ages and all countries commenting on my videos and leaving messages. But at the core, when I started the YouTube, it was to be that inspiration for others, to give that hope, to be that person that they can say they're not alone. And then what happened with the podcast, because the YouTube's just one video a week. The podcast was people were saying, I really just look forward to Wednesdays. It's the best day of the week. And I thought, gosh, I want people to look forward to more than just one day a week.
Right.
Like, that's great. I must be inspiring them. But I started my Gebbs Juice podcast, so it would be a daily little thing that you could listen to in 2 minutes or less, just to give you that little boost. But for me, I just really want people to know that they're not alone, and truly anything is possible. Because when I walk with my grandpa, every day that I'm home now, it's been a little over a year, I walk with my grandpa at the mall. And he tells me that his biggest regret in life, I've asked him, what do you regret doing? And what do you regret not doing? And the thing regret doing, he's like, well, I'm going to have to think about it. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. No. Because I first got the answer of the regret of something he didn't do. And so I knew that, I'm like, you instantly had an answer for what you didn't do, but for what you did do, you have to think about it. So obviously there was nothing he did in life. Somebody that's afraid, if I do that, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world.
Right.
He didn't regret anything he's done, but he regretted the fact that he never got his books published because ultimately he let one human being, which is the one he reiterates over and over and over again, he let just one. Some might do a couple, some might do 5 or 6, but people that have been turned down hundreds of times before they've been accepted when there was a gatekeeper, which I'll tie that in. But he has this one person who says, that's really good. yeah, but if you would have written it 50 years ago, you'd be set. And he just held on to that. And so thus he never pursued that. And so for me, I want people to know that gatekeeper's gone. I mean, you know as well as I do from the people that you've interviewed that really, and people listening here, a lot might get it, and maybe some that light bulb hasn't gone off yet, but there is no gatekeepers anymore. The podcast, as you mentioned, YouTube, blogs, all these things have allowed us to literally have no gatekeepers, build up this following. And I mean, there's people on YouTube right now. I mean, one of my good friends, I mean, they've had, I believe, over 1 billion views on their channel as a whole. They're one of the largest beauty channels on YouTube, Luxy Hair. They have almost 7 or 8 million subscribers right now. That's more views and eyeballs than some mainstream television shows have.
Wow.
I mean, and it was just him and his wife and the sister when they started. And so I just have this deep passion for people to be able to pursue the things that they get excited about and not have, like when I've gone and spoken at schools, I hate it when kids tell me that my parents, they don't support me at all. And I've lit up that thing inside where they go, I can do this. No matter what, I should not let anyone crush my dreams. And for me, I guess it's not that I had anybody crush my dreams, but I've had people close to me who've never gotten to pursue their dreams. But yet I've had someone who has supported me, and I just want to be that light for someone else to know, because it lights me up to be able to know I've had all these awesome things happen, but nothing lights me up more at this stage in my life than hearing someone else have that aha moment or that light bulb moment where they go, bam, I can do that. And then seeing them even achieve those things, it's just awesome. So
wow, well, that's a fantastic philosophy and answer. And I got to tell you, even though I'm doing these interviews, as a public service myself to share with people and inspire people, there's a little self-serving because I get inspired by talking to people like you too.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I will add that everything I've gotten to do and some of that stuff, I mean, there is some of that. I mean, it's awesome to get to interact with these just amazing human beings, and they inspire me, And that's really important. And surround yourself and find people who inspire you.
It's a web of inspiration. All right, 2 more questions, Michael, and we're out of here. One, you've done so many amazing things so far, but any future plans or what's in the works for the rest of the year? Or?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I have a site that I'm working on with a guy who I actually did do a one-on-one training with, and he grew a 6-figure videography business, and now we're doing some online webinars and trainings, and we have courses out and things that we're selling right now, mainly with the videography niche, or people who are wanting to get into doing videos. But ultimately, I mean, my big plan in the next 12 months is I will have more of my own personal development, jump starter kind of program that'll ultimately, be for a broader level of people. That's where my YouTube and all that's kind of growing all that audience right now. Just I don't plan on stopping any of it at any point in time, but I'll definitely have some more kind of advanced things that people could dive into in some of my own kind of products and trainings, and then just continue to just keep rocking it out all the time because
awesome. Information products. That's something I know a little bit about. So, we live in the same town. Maybe we can.
We are going to do lunch.
Definitely. Meet for coffee, although I don't think either one of us probably need coffee.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee. Oh my gosh, yeah, right.
You don't? Really? No caffeine?
Yeah, no, I'd probably explode.
But I'm gonna be linking to a lot of the things that we talked about in the show notes. But where can people find you and online in particular?
Yeah, it's one thing right now. I don't know when you're going to release this, but there's like that 8-week period of time where you can be in that new and noteworthy. And so I'm doing a lot of push towards that iTunes right now. So I'll definitely give you that link. And I know the reviews and everything are really important. I've got like 65 so far. So if people want to check that out, you'll have to link that. I don't have a specific link. It's a long URL.
Right.
But the podcast is something that you can definitely check out. It's just a little 2-minute audio. And then my big thing is my YouTube series, which is youtube.com/Michael Gebben, and you can have that linked up too. But I do my weekly series there just once a week, and actually just when we hit on this call, I hit 3,000 subscribers. So I don't know again when it'll be released, but so I love that. But and then you can link up my Facebook or Instagram or anything else you want to link up. I'm all over the place.
Well, I'll put them all in the show notes there. And the Gebbs Juice is what's the audio podcast.
Yep, that's
daily.
it.
Is it Monday through Friday, so 5 days a week?
Seven.
Or seven days a week.
Yeah, 7 days a week.
And just a couple of minutes each?
2 minutes and 14 seconds. The beginning ones were a little bit, they were all 2 minutes or less, but now I like have a very much system. They're all 2:14. That's
Wow.
it.
That's fantastic. That's definitely consumable, even if you have a short attention span. So there's no excuse not to get juiced up every day. It's your audio caffeine.
That's right.
Well, Michael, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for all the great stuff that you do in the world, and you're at such an age where you got decades in front of you of growing this and inspiring more and more people. So thanks for being a guest.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll be back with another amazing guest next week or so. In the meantime, stay inspired. Think unlimited possibilities. You can do it, right, Michael?
Anything is possible. Rock and roll.
All right. We'll see you all later, folks. So long for now.